All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our Cougar Mountain Software webinar. Today, our webinar is going to be how to lock down your software to stop fraud. My name is Jeremy Beislein, and I am your presenter here today. I'm a trainer here at Cougar Mountain Software. Those of you who are joining us today that are current clients of ours have probably worked with me in training sessions in the past. All right, so for the webinar today, we ask that if you have any questions, then go ahead and type your questions in the question and comment section of the webinar app on your computer. And at the end of the webinar, we'll go over all your questions and make sure we get them answered with what time we have left. If we do run out of time and don't get to all your questions, we'll make sure we type those up and publish those on the website for you to make sure your questions are answered. Okay, so let's talk about locking down your computer software. Today's webinar is actually the fifth in a series of fraud prevention webinars we've done. So today we're going to focus on how to secure your computer and networks from anybody that might break into your system for the purpose of fraudulent activities, to try to steal some of your data or customer information and so forth. So on our agenda today, we're going to first talk about network security and firewalls. Then we'll be talking about passwords, database and data storage security, software firmware updates, protection from viruses and malware, and email security. And then at the end, we'll wrap it up and answer your questions. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started today. So why is network security important? Well, as many of you know, especially in recent years, many of the major corporations throughout the world have been the victim of hacking and targets of criminals that hack into the systems and compromise their security, costing these businesses millions of dollars in lost revenue and expenses to try to make up for losses that were incurred as a result of their data being hacked into. So it is very important that any business, large or small, have the security that they need to prevent these attacks from happening. And these attacks come from hackers. So what are hackers? Well, hacker is a person that hacks into your network, a person that basically accesses your network without authorization for the purpose of stealing your secure data. Most hackers, it's their goal to get into your system in order to try to steal your customers' information or your company information. Sometimes the hacker might just be doing it as a hobby just to see if they can, but nobody wants to take that risk. So what do? Well, we need to talk about the network on your organization in order to prevent those hackers from accessing your secure data for your business. Now, whether your business is large or small, it is very important that your business is secure from these attacks. And it all starts with your network security. So your network security is very important to prevent these hackers from coming in from the outside. And the first line of defense for your network is going to be a firewall. So what exactly is a firewall? Well, it's kind of like a shield that protects your personal computer and your company network from outside attacks on the internet, from anyone out there on the internet that might break into your system. So the question is do you have a firewall? Well, nowadays, most everybody does have a firewall, even if you don't realize it. Firewalls do come in a couple of different forms, and the most common form is a software firewall, which is included in anyone who has Windows 10 or any of the more modern Windows operating systems. Microsoft has made sure that the firewall is included in your operating system, but you have to make sure it's set up and configured correctly in order to protect your computer. Your Windows firewall will protect your computer from any outside attacks if it is set up correctly. There's also firewalls that are included in some antivirus programs that also protects your computer. But what about your overall network? Well, if you have a workstation server configuration, then the server would probably have a firewall to protect your entire network from outside attacks. Or you may even have another type of firewall that is actually another piece of hardware that sits between your network and the internet to protect your network and all of your computers from these outside attacks. So another thing that your firewall can do, one of the things your firewall can do to protect you from these attacks is by blocking pings and locking down your network. So what is a ping? Well, a ping is just simply a query. It's basically somebody out there on the internet that is checking to see if there is anything out there. So if they by chance come across your specific network address and they submit a ping or a request just to see if your network is there, then typically your system would answer back and say, yeah, here I am. It doesn't give out any data or any information. It just responds saying, yep, there is a network here. However, you can secure your network even further by blocking those ping requests. So whoever's out there pinging your network, if your firewall blocks the ping, they won't see your network. They won't receive a response from that ping request, so they'll move on. They'll think there's nothing there. So that is one way you can set your firewall to help secure your network further. There are certain things to keep in mind with that, though. Some businesses, they have to have certain ports and certain parts of their network opened up to the internet because of the services they provide to their clients. And so your particular situation might have to be configured and customized for your needs. But in general, if you're not one of those businesses that have to provide online services to clients, then it's might be a good idea to make sure your firewall blocks any ping requests or closes any open ports. All right, so there's also another option you can do in addition to a firewall to help protect your network. The option is known as IPS. What IPS is it stands for Intrusion Prevention System. So an intrusion prevention system, or an IPS, it works directly with your network and your firewall to not just block what's not allowed, but it also monitors what is coming in or going out between your network and the internet. And the IPS goes a step further in monitoring the traffic to block specific data requests or specific traffic and make sure that whatever is coming in is supposed to be coming in and block it if it's not. So in a nutshell, the IPS monitors the traffic coming in and out of your network. The firewall blocks traffic to your network that's not allowed. All right, so the next part of our webinar today we're going to talk about is passwords. Passwords, it seems like a very simple thing. Just about everything you do nowadays on any computer or electronic device has an option to set up a password. And most computers, in most businesses, passwords are set up and they're required just because of the business setup. You notice on your cell phones even, a lot of your smartphones have a password that you can lock it down with so that people can't access your smartphone. Well, it's the same with your computer as well. You want to make sure that all of your workstations and computers are password protected. Make sure that all of your network components, such as your routers and firewalls, are also password protected, where you would go in and access the settings to those devices or those applications. So one of the things you want to do with passwords is you want to make your password what's called a strong password. So a strong password is a password that's a combination of letters and numbers and symbols, uppercase and lowercase letters, and is many characters, at least 8 or 9 or even 10 characters or more. The more characters you have and the more combination of characters you have, the stronger the password is. But keep in mind that you don't want to use characters that are consecutive, such as numbers that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or A, B, C, D, E, F on letters, because those are weak passwords. You also don't want to use common words, such as the word password or your name. Those would be considered weak passwords, because those are easy passwords for somebody to guess on to be able to get into your system. And a funny story, I was accessing my medical insurance account the other day, and I forgot my password. So when I went to reset the password, the system says you must have a password of at least 12 characters, 1 uppercase, 1 lowercase, a number and a special symbol, such as an ampersand sign or a dollar sign or something like that. I'm like, wow, how is anyone supposed to remember a password like that? But you know, that would be a very strong password. So that's a good idea to have your password set up strong so that you can make sure that nobody else can access your system that's not authorized to. So another thing you want to do in your organization is set up employee security on the computers and workstations that your employees will be accessing in your organization. So we talked about in a previous webinar how to set up different rights and user controls within the Denali software, for those of you who use Denali in Cougar Mountain software. And that's a perfect example on how to lock down the Denali accounting system of what users can and cannot do within that system. But the same type of features apply not just within Denali, but also in your whole operating environment, in your computer system itself. There's many different options that the network administrator can set up of what users are allowed to access within your network. You can lock down workstations, lock down different folders or network locations using these options. You can even lock down individual files, such as certain documents with passwords, or just not allowing certain people to have access to those folders or documents. All right, so moving on, we'll talk about database security next. So this is kind of on the same lines as network security and computer security, but now we're dealing with specific databases. And the reason I wanted to talk about that today is because Cougar Mountain uses a database system for the Denali software and any of the other softwares we've had in the past. We've always used a database system, which any accounting software uses. Well, a database is a system that takes data and organizes it and even processes that data for you for the specific function that you need it for, such as Denali, for example. When you open up the Denali program, you see your general ledger, your accounts payable, your payroll, your accounts receivable, all the different modules, but that's the program. The data that you see when you enter or run reports or enter transactions is handled on the database itself. So you want to make sure that your database is secure. You can go and secure the program, and that's great for what users are allowed to do or not to do, but it's also recommended that you secure your database itself. And Denali uses an SQL database, so make sure your SQL server is also secure and that it's protected from any unauthorized use. All right, the data storage, that goes right along with database security, but it also has to do with any information that you have on your computer. And what this topic is about is it's more about securing your data from any crashes, any mishaps. And today, our webinar talking about hacking and security with networks and all that, one of the biggest problems that people have with their computer crashing is it crashes because of a virus or from a hacker that got in and planted some kind of a malicious attack on the system, and then your hard drive crashes. Well, if your data is secure, is stored and backed up, then if your computer ever does crash, if you are misfortunate to be the victim of one of those attacks, then it may require that you reset or reboot your entire system or even reformat your whole system and start over fresh. But by having your data backed up and stored securely, you can restore that data and then you can pick up where you left off. So data storage is also very important. Make sure you have regular backups that you do, but make sure those backups are secure. Make sure that you have those off-site or somewhere on another piece of equipment, such as a thumb drive or an external hard drive that you secure your backups on, in addition to the regular backups that you run. All right, so now our next topic is talking about firmware and software updates. We're going to talk about firmware first, because firmware is basically software that's directly related to the hardware that it runs. So most of the equipment that you have on a computer network, such as your routers, your firewalls, or even computers themselves, the motherboards and so forth, they have certain pieces of software embedded right within that piece of equipment. Well, that software is called firmware. However, a lot of hackers out there, they figure out ways to get around the firewalls and the routers that protect your network by bypassing some of the security protocols set up by the firmware of that particular piece of equipment. And so the way the equipment manufacturers combat that is they update that firmware to protect you from those attacks, some of those newer methods that these hackers are coming up with to get through those systems. So make sure you keep that firmware updated so that you can make sure your protection is always updated as well. And that protects you from the hardware attacks, but you also want to make sure you update your software, which, number one, most importantly, includes your operating system itself, such as your Windows, Windows 10, Windows 7, whatever operating system you may be using. Make sure you keep the operating system updated as well for the same reason, so that the hackers won't be able to bypass some of the security protocols that are built into your operating system. Any other software, such as Denali, for example, make sure you always keep the latest version of Denali installed. That way, you are secure from any newer methods that might be used, that might be a security concern, where people might be able to get into a system because the software is outdated and they figured out a way around it. It's mostly on your operating system, but it's also recommended to keep you updated on the latest version of all of your software you run. All right, and our next topic is antivirus software. So what exactly is antivirus software? Well, a virus, as far as computers are concerned, is another way that your system can get broken into, or basically your system can be compromised not just from security breaches, but the whole system can be shut down with a virus, a computer virus. And a virus is a piece of software that goes in and actually runs like a program on your system, but the program that's running is a program that's going to harm your system. It's going to damage your system in some way, possibly even wipe it out completely. So one of the security methods that you can use to protect yourself from a virus is by making sure you have a good antivirus software installed. Antivirus programs, there's many of them out there. There's several of them that will do different things for what you need in your system and in your network and your business. So you definitely want to check them out, make sure that you have a good antivirus system installed, and keep the antivirus updated. We talked about software updates. Well, of course, your antivirus software needs to be updated as well to protect you from any newer viruses or threats that come about. All right, so now we'll talk a little bit about email security. Now, this topic is very important because most of us today, we receive emails. We work with emails. We send out emails. We communicate to each other through emails. Well, emails is also a method that hackers and criminals are using to try to break into your system or to try to steal information from you directly. Email security is very important to protect individuals, especially from attacks or from a secure breach, a security breach, not just on your computer, but your personal information. One of the biggest problems that we run into nowadays is called phishing. And what is phishing? It's spelled P-H-I-S-H-I-N-G, not F-I-S-H. It's a different spelling because that's what the criminal is doing. They are phishing for information. And what it is you might receive an email that looks like it's coming from your bank or from the IRS or a very legitimate email. It looks very real. Where in reality, that email is actually coming from an attacker, from a criminal or a hacker. And the email will include a link to click on. It'll ask you, please click this link to log into your account and update your information. Well, when you click that link, it actually activates a computer virus that goes in and steals your information. Or it might take you to a website that looks perfectly legitimate, looks like it's the IRS website, but it's actually a criminal's website. And so you'll go there and you'll type in all your personal information that they're requesting, thinking that it's from the IRS or your bank, where in reality, you're just giving your information out to a criminal who can use that information to steal your identity, your bank account funds, or anything. So it's very important that you keep on top of your email security. So what do you do about that? Well, first of all, you want to make sure that any emails you're receiving are legitimate. A lot of antivirus programs can pick up if an email is a phishing or a spam email, and it will filter that for you. A lot of emails will filter those for you, but there's still a lot of them that get through. So you want to use an antivirus scanner that's going to be scanning your computer in real time, any applications you run, any documents you open, and any emails that you open. The antivirus program can scan the activity that you're doing to make sure it's safe. But most importantly, the user has to use common sense in this case. They have to check the email for confidential content, and they have to make sure that they're not going to give out their personal information to someone that's not authorized for that information. So, number one recommendation, do not click on any links that you see in any emails unless you know for sure where that email came from. So that's the recommended protocol there. If you want to go to the IRS website, don't click on a link in the email. Go to your web browser and just go to irs.gov and go to there to update your information. Same with your bank account, your credit card accounts, any financial information. Go directly to the website from the internet rather than clicking on a link from an email. Another recommendation is if you see an email that has many recipients, and you'll notice that in the email, you'll see it was sent from, looks like your bank, but then it's sent to 100 different people all at once. Make sure that you do not run any programs or click on any links in those emails, because those are potentially dangerous emails that you want to be careful with. All right, so wrapping it up here today, we'll talk a little bit about some of the do's and don'ts on computer and network security. So just basic common sense, basic things that you can do to protect yourself from these security issues. Don't be tricked into giving away confidential information. We just talked about that on the email. Don't use an unprotected computer. Make sure your computer is protected with a firewall. Don't leave sensitive information lying around the office. That one's important. You want to make sure that any paperwork or computer screens, when you walk away from your computer, lock the computer. Any paperwork, make sure it's filed away or put away in a drawer somewhere so that if people are visiting your workplace, then they won't pick up on any information. And we just talked about locking your computer and your mobile phone when not in use. Stay alert and report any suspicious activity. Anything that you have a concern about, always report to your IT team if there's any concerns that you're worried about on your computer. Always use hard-to-guess passwords. I know that can be a nuisance, just like this the other day when I was trying to access my medical insurance account. But hey, it's the best way to go to keep your data secure. Password protects sensitive files and devices. Do not plug in personal devices without the okay from IT. So we didn't talk about that a lot. Why would we not want to do that? Why shouldn't I plug in my personal cell phone into my work computer? Well, your personal cell phone might have personal apps on there that your work computer can pick up on, or there may be a virus on your personal phone that you don't know about that could be transmitted to your entire company's network. So make sure that you get the okay from your IT department before using personal devices on your work computer. And be cautious of suspicious emails and links. That one's very important. All right, so that pretty much concludes the presentation today. I did want to mention that Cougar Mountain now does offer a service for our current clients that use our software. In addition to support for your Denali program, we also now offer support for your computer and networking in general. So if you're having issues with your computers, any tech support issues that you need help with your networking, you can go ahead and give us a call and we can get you taken care of. So Number one thing is, though, you want to make sure you keep your computer system and your network secure and safe. Okay, so this concludes our webinar today on locking down your computer and software. Be sure to go to cougarmountain.com/fraud to check out all of our fraud prevention series webinars. We'll have this one up there on the website here in the next couple of days. We got the other 4 there now, so be sure to check them out, and also check back on the website for other webinars and other announcements that we have coming up. Any questions or comments that you have, you can give us a call or send an email to your account representative at Cougar Mountain. Also, keep an eye out for follow-up communications and access to this recording as well. So with that, we'll now open up the floor for questions. Do we have any questions out there today that anybody may have asked or comments? Okay, so there is one that just came out up here that we had. The question is, what is the best antivirus software to use? You know what, that is a really good question. I like to call those a loaded question. Well, you know, I've got Matt here today. He's actually one of our IT experts here at Cougar Mountain. I'm going to hand the mic to him to answer that question. So.
Yeah, that is actually probably one of the #1 questions out there. There are so many, just like, you know, all the different types of cards you can buy. There's every different type of antivirus you can use. Avast is one of the #1 rated free antiviruses out there. Just like your Windows operating system, Avast offers a free version that does a lot of the free time scanning and all that. They also provide a paid version which does beyond and above that. It does real-time scanning of your emails, of you know, even if you click a link, a lot of times it'll before it can harm your computer, it'll catch it and throw it into quarantine. Another really great one is Kaspersky. It's another paid one. They don't have a free version that I'm aware of. I use it at home. It does everything and beyond. It actually has a built-in firewall, real-time scanning, and all that.
All right, thank you, Matt. Yeah, so there's several different options for you out there for antivirus programs. So definitely want to check them out and pick the one that works best for you. So let's see, do we have any other questions here today? All right, it looks like that's it. So thank you guys all for being here today. It's been a pleasure. And again, keep an eye out for follow-up communication and access to this presentation. And we will talk to you next time. Thanks so much for attending. Have a great day, everyone.